took him!
Hold him! Oh, hold him still!
Warren! Oh, God! No! No! Get your hands off me!
Easy now.
Warren!
Come on. Get out of the car. Come on.
The Statement of Randolph Carter by H.P. Lovecraft. Adapted by Jeremy Biggs.
Tell us, Carter, where's Harley Warren?
I have told you...
There's no use lying, Carter. We have a witness who placed
I know, placed
you and Warren on the Gainesville.
If you will please.
On the Gainesville.
Let me finish! By God, won't you let me finish? I repeat to you, gentlemen, that your inquisition is fruitless. Detain me here forever, if you will. Confine or execute me if you must have a victim to propitiate the illusion you call justice. But I can say no more than I have said already. Everything that I can remember I have told with perfect candor. If anything remains vague, it is only because of the dark cloud which has come over my mind. That cloud and the nebulous nature of the horrors which it brought upon me.
Carter, stop giving us this bull! What became of Harley Warren?
I don't know! Though I think, almost hope, that he is in peaceful oblivion, if there be anywhere so blessed a thing.
We know you're lying, Carter. We have a witness who places you and Warren together on the night he disappeared.
I will not deny, though my memory is uncertain and indistinct, that this witness of yours may have seen us together as he says. That we bore electric lanterns, spades, and a curious coil of wire with attached instruments, I will even affirm. For these things all played a part in the single hideous scene which remains burned into my shaken recollection. But of what followed, and of the reason I was found alone and dazed on the edge of the swamp next morning, I must insist that I know nothing, save what I have told you over and over again.
Come on, Carter! There is nothing in or near that swamp which even remotely resembles your graveyard.
I know nothing beyond what I saw. Vision or nightmare it may have been. Vision or nightmare, I fervently hope it was. Yet it is all that my mind retains of what took place in those shocking hours after we left the sight of men. And why Harley Warren did not return, he or his shade or some nameless thing I cannot describe alone can tell.
But what about the blood?
Maybe I tripped. Maybe I fell on one of the jagged edges of those accursed tombstones. You can see the scars on my arm. If I could remember, I would tell you.
Just what was your relationship with Mr. Warren?
As I have said before, he was my teacher and my closest friend. Of his vast collection of strange, rare books on forbidden subjects, I have read all that are written in the languages of which I am master. But these are few as compared with those in languages I cannot understand. Most, I believe, are in Arabic, and the fiend-inspired book which brought on the end, the book which he carried in his pocket out of the world, was written in characters whose like I never saw elsewhere. Warren would never tell me just what was in that book. As to the nature of our studies, must I say again that I no longer retain full comprehension? It seems to me rather merciful that I do not, for they were terrible studies, which I pursued more through reluctant fascination than through actual inclination. Warren always dominated me, and sometimes I feared him. I remember how I shuddered at his facial expression on the night before the awful happening, when he talked so incessantly of his theory, why certain corpses never decay but rest firm and fat in their tombs for 1,000 years. But I do not fear him now, for I suspect he has known horrors beyond my ken. Now I fear for him.
What were you and Warren hoping to achieve out there?
I have no clear idea of our object on that night. Certainly it had much to do with something in the book which Warren carried with him. That ancient book in undecipherable characters which had come to him from India a month before. But I swear I do not know what it was that we expected to find. Your witness says he saw us at 11:30 on the Gainesville Pike headed for Big Cypress Swamp. This is probably true, but I have no distinct memory of it. The picture seared into my soul is of one scene only, and the hour must have been long after midnight, for a waning crescent moon was high in the vaporous heavens. The place was an ancient cemetery, so ancient that I trembled at the manifold signs of immemorial years. It was in a deep, damp hollow, overgrown with rank grass, moss, and curious creeping weeds, and filled with a vague stench which my idle fancy associated absurdly with rotting stone. On every hand were the signs of neglect and decrepitude, and I seemed haunted by the notion that Warren and I were the first living creatures to invade a lethal silence of centuries. Over the valley's rim, a waning crescent moon peered through the noisome vapors that seemed to emanate from unheard-of catacombs. And by its feeble, wavering beams, I could distinguish a repellent array of antique slabs, urns, cenotaphs, and mausoleum facades, all crumbling, moss-grown, and moisture-stained, and partly concealed by the gross luxuriance of the unhealthy vegetation. My first vivid impression of my own presence in this terrible necropolis concerns the act of pausing with Warren before a certain half-obliterated sepulchre, and of throwing down some burdens which we seem to have been carrying. I now observed that I had with me an electric lantern and 2 spades, whilst my companion was supplied with a similar lantern and a portable telephone outfit. No word was uttered, for the spot and the task seemed known to us, and without delay we seized our spades and commenced to clear away the grass, weeds, and drifted earth from the flat, archaic mortuary. After uncovering the entire surface, which consisted of 3 immense granite slabs, we stepped back some distance to survey the charnel scene, and Warren appeared to make some mental calculations. He returned to the sepulchre, and using his spade as a lever, sought to pry up the slab lying nearest to a stony ruin which may have been a monument in its day. He did not succeed, and motioned to me to come to his assistance. Finally, our combined strength loosened the stone, which we raised and tipped to one side.
I'm sorry, Carter. You'll have to stay here on the surface.
You want me to stay? Here?
I don't wish to offend you, and heaven knows I'd be glad enough to have you with me, but...
Then let me come with you. I've studied the texts. I know the ritual. I deserve a chance
No!
to see...
You have no idea what this thing is really like. As much as you have read and as much as I have told you, these are but small fragments of all the knowledge that I have acquired.
But I can help you, Warren. You can't do this alone.
The responsibility is mine alone. Don't worry about me. I am fully prepared for all that I shall have to say and do down there. I really need you here to man the telephone.
To man the telephone? All these years, our studies, the experiments, all for nothing?
If I do not return, and there is a very real chance that I may not, someone will need to tell of our discovery.
I refuse to be your glorified biographer. I deserve to go down
If you will not stay here, then we will abandon this expedition.
You don't mean that.
I cannot risk your death or probable madness. Carter, you've been my faithful protege and friend all these long years. I cannot let you go down there. Your nerves are too frail. Here, take this. I'll keep you informed every step of the way. You see, I have enough wire here to reach the center of the earth and back.
I can still hear in my memory those coolly spoken words, and I can still remember my remonstrances. I seemed desperately anxious to accompany my friend into those sepulchral depths, yet he proved inflexibly obdurate. All this I can still remember, though I no longer know what manner of thing we sought. After he had secured my reluctant acquiescence in his design, Warren picked up the reel of wire and adjusted the instruments. At his nod, I took one of the latter and seated myself upon an aged, discolored gravestone close by the newly uncovered aperture.
Remain here above ground, Carter. Under no circumstance should you follow me. No matter what you hear, no matter what I say, do not follow me.
Then he shook my hand, shouldered the coil of wire, and disappeared within that indescribable ossuary. For a moment I kept sight of the glow of his lantern and heard the rustle of the wire as he laid it down after him, but the glow soon disappeared abruptly, as if a turn in the stone staircase had been encountered, and the sound died away almost as quickly. In the lone silence of that hoary and deserted city of the dead, my mind conceived the most ghastly fantasies and illusions, and the grotesque shrines and monoliths seemed to assume a hideous personality, a half-sentience. Amorphous shadows seemed to lurk in the darker recesses of the weed-choked hollow, and to flit as in some blasphemous ceremonial procession past the portals of the moldering tombs in the hillside. Shadows which could not have been cast by that pallid, peering crescent moon. I constantly consulted my watch by the light of my electric lantern, and listened with feverish anxiety at the receiver of the telephone, but for more than a quarter of an hour, heard nothing. Then, a faint clicking came from the instrument, and I called down to my friend in a tense voice. "Hello, Warren. Hello, Warren. Warren, can you hear me?" Apprehensive as I was nevertheless unprepared for the words which came up from that uncanny vault, in accents more alarmed and quivering than any I had heard before from Harley Warren. He who had so calmly left me a little while previously now called from below in a shaky whisper more portentous than the loudest shriek.
Carter, I wish you could see this. I'm crouched on a rocky outcrop, looking down upon an enormous chamber. Below me there rows upon rows of bodies in various states of repose. If it wasn't for the pale color of their skin, you could have mistaken them for sleeping. But they are most certainly dead.
I was enthralled as he recounted this charnel scene. I yearned to know more and must have urged him on.
How long have they been here? The layers of dust suggest countless years, but still fresh as the day they were first interred. I was right, Carter. No visible sign of decay whatsoever.
At this point, my mind draws a slight blank. I cannot remember quite what was said, just that it concerned our ultimate object. It is as if those thin strands of memory concerning the detail of our studies have been taken from me. The next thing that comes to mind is Warren's voice.
My eyes are adjusting to the somewhat eerie glow. There's a stone monolith in the center of the cavern. The source of the light may be from phosphorescent cave lichen. It's covered in markings, hieroglyphs, shapes, unlike anything I've seen before. Well, it's hard to make out the full extent of the chamber, but I can see the bodies are arranged on slabs in a form of semicircle around the central obelisk. I think I recognize... No, I can't see from here. I'm gonna have to get closer.
Lust for knowledge, gentlemen, is a formidable thing. As formidable as lust for riches or for power. When those scientists from Bern or Zurich talk of ripping apart the foundations of all matter, to peek between the walls of our existence and to understand its many mysteries, they suffer the very same affliction as Harley Warren and I. I understand all too well the obsession that comes with that quest, and the cost. Now, if you think I am a coward, or worse, a monster as your looks seem to suggest, then you must know that to some degree this is in both counts true. I could have stopped his expedition and saved my friend. I could have recalled him. I could have dove down into that accursed darkness and pulled him to safety. But instead I sat, mute, first spellbound, and then later paralyzed with fear by the events that unfolded.
For somewhere so far in the bowels of the earth, it's damn cold down here. You feel it in your marrow. The air is rank and the walls damp and slippery. Okay, I've gone as far as I dare. Sorry, Carter, but I still can't make out the full markings. They're certainly very ancient. From here I can see more of the bodies. Not hundreds, thousands of them. As you look up towards the monolith, they become denser in number until at the base, a veritable sea of cadavers. It's an unsettling sight, mark my words. Wait, something's happening. It's moving. The monolith, it's moving.
Are you okay, Warren? What's happening?
God, if you could see what I'm seeing. The light from the monolith is stronger now. The walls, Carter. The walls are alive.
Paralyzed, I could not speak. The transmitter visibly shook in my hands.
All around me, seething, contorting, torsos pinned to the walls.
Mouths without voices, faces without eyes.
Once more, I gave no answer. Speechless, I could only wait. Then came the frenzied tones again.
It's terrible. Monstrous. Unbelievable.
This time, my voice did not fail me, and I poured into the transmitter a flood of excited questions.
Warren! What is it? What do you see? What is it?
There's something else here, slithering from the pit. It's old, beyond ancient. There are eyes, hundreds and hundreds of... It's not from here. I can't think.
I don't understand. Warren, speak clearly.
It knows I'm here. I don't know how, but it can sense. Oh God, I can feel it. It's in my head.
My mind reeled from the outburst of my erstwhile mentor. His once cool tones now dissolved into madness. Why could I not move? Was it disbelief? Was it fear? For those few seconds that felt like minutes, my terror would not subside. And then from the transmitter, the voice of Warren in a pitch of wilder consternation.
Carter, for the love of God, put back the slab and get out while you still can. Quick, leave everything now. Make for the outside. It's your only chance. Do as I say. Do it now.
I heard, yet was able only to repeat my frantic questions. Around me were the tombs and the darkness and the shadows. Below me, some peril beyond the radius of the human imagination. But my friend was in greater danger than I, and through my fear, I felt a vague resentment that he should deem me capable of deserting him under such circumstances. More clicking, and after a pause, a piteous cry from Warren.
Get out! For God's sake, put back the slab and run, Carter!
I formed and shouted a resolution.
Warren! Brace up, I'm coming down!
But at this offer, the tone of my auditor changed to a scream of utter despair.
Don't! You can't understand. It's too late, my own fault. I didn't know. Put back the slab and run. There's nothing else you or anyone can do now. Go! Now! Quick! Before it's too late!
I tried not to heed him, tried to break through the paralysis which held me, and to fulfill my vow to rush down to his aid. But his next whisper found me still held inert in the chains of stark horror.
Carter, hurry, it's no use now. You must get away. Better one than two. Put back the slab. There you have me, Carter. Don't make it harder. Save yourself. Cover up those damn steps and run for your life. You're losing time. Run, Carter, run!
After that was silence. I know not how many interminable aeons I sat, stupefied, whispering, muttering, calling, screaming into that telephone. Over and over again through those aeons I whispered, muttered, called, shouted, and screamed.
Warren! Warren! Answer me! Are you there?
And then there came to me the crowning horror of all. The unbelievable, unthinkable, almost unmentionable thing. I have said that aeons seemed to elapse after Warren shrieked forth his last despairing warning, and that only my own cries now broke the hideous silence. But after a while, there was a further clicking in the receiver, and I strained my ears to listen. Again, I called down.
Warren! Are you there?
And in answer heard the thing which has brought this cloud over my mind. I do not try, gentlemen, to account for that thing, that voice, nor can I venture to describe it in detail, since the first words took away my consciousness and created a mental blank which reaches to the time of my awakening in the hospital. Shall I say that voice was deep, hollow, gelatinous, remote, unearthly, inhuman, disembodied? What shall I say? It was the end of my experience, and is the end of my story. I heard it and knew no more. Heard it as I sat petrified in that unknown cemetery in the hollow, amidst the crumbling stones and the falling tombs, the rank vegetation and the miasmal vapors. Heard it well up from the innermost depths of that damnable open sepulchre as I watched amorphous necrophagous shadows dance beneath an accursed waning moon. And this is what it said.
You fool! Warren is dead!
He's dead! Warren is dead! He's dead! Oh, God!
The Statement of Randolph Carter was performed by Dan Morgan as Randolph Carter, Jonathan Hansler as Harley Warren, Richard Hollingworth as the interrogator, and Alan Thorpe as the policeman.